There's a moment where people decide how seriously they'll take you. It happens before your idea lands, before your logic is even processed. It happens in your voice. And if you get this wrong, you can be right and still lose the room. Not because of what you said, but because of how it sounded. And here's what nobody tells you. Once that first impression is formed, everything you say after has to fight it. Every word, every sentence, every argument, all of it fighting a judgment that was made in the first 3 seconds. In the next few minutes, you're going to hear your own voice differently. You'll notice patterns you've never paid attention to before. And once you do, you won't be able to ignore them again. Because once you see this, you can't unsee it.
Most people think communication starts with words. It doesn't. It starts with perception. The second you begin speaking, people aren't analyzing your idea. They're scanning your delivery, your pace, your tone, your control. And they're asking one silent question. Does this person sound certain, or do they sound like they need approval? And the answer to that question comes from patterns you don't even notice you have. That's the part that makes this so hard to fix. Because the problem isn't your vocabulary. It isn't your confidence level. It isn't even what you know. It's something far more subtle. Something running underneath every word you say. A frequency. And people read that frequency instantly. Before they understand your message, they've already felt your certainty. Or the absence of it. And that feeling is what controls whether they lean in or slowly start to tune out. There are 3 patterns that instantly weaken your voice, and almost everyone has at least one of them. The first is speed. Most people speak too fast, not because they want to, but because they feel pressure. Pressure to explain.
Pressure to be understood before the moment passes. Pressure to hold attention before someone takes it from you. So they rush. And when you rush your words, you don't sound clear. You sound unstable, like you're trying to hold attention instead of owning it. And people feel that immediately. Not consciously, but they start listening differently, like they're waiting for you to stumble. The second pattern is softened tone. You remove sharpness from your words. You try to sound agreeable instead of grounded. And without realizing it, you turn statements into suggestions. You say something, but it doesn't land as something solid. It lands as something flexible, something that can be questioned, adjusted, or simply ignored. The third pattern is the one almost no one talks about, the rising tone. You finish your sentences going up, like a question, even when it's not one. And that tiny shift completely changes how your message is received. Because instead of sounding final, it sounds open. Instead of sounding certain, it sounds negotiable. And the moment your words feel negotiable, people start testing them.
And this is why you can say something correct and still not be taken seriously. Because people don't just hear content, they hear signals. Signals of certainty, signals of control, signals of stability. And when those signals aren't there, your message loses weight. Not logically, but instinctively. That's why someone else can say less than you and still be heard more. Think about the people in your life who command attention when they speak. They're not always the smartest person in the room. They're not always the most experienced. But when they talk, people stop. People listen. People take it seriously. And it has nothing to do with their words. It has everything to do with how those words arrive. The pace, the stillness behind each sentence, the absence of desperation. That's what authority sounds like. Not loud, not aggressive, just certain. And certainty is a sound. So what actually changes this? Not more words, not better arguments, less noise. You slow down, slightly, not dramatically, just enough to create space between your thoughts. You finish your sentences flat.
Not rising. You let the period exist in your voice. You remove the unnecessary softness, the hedging, the over-explaining, the apologetic tone that creeps in when you're not sure if people are still with you. And most importantly, you let your words land without rushing to support them, without trying to fix the silence after you speak. Because here's what changes when you do this. People stop interrupting. They listen longer. They process what you say differently. Not because you became louder, but because you became grounded. And grounded voices don't get ignored. They get heard. They get remembered. They get followed. Same room, same idea, same words, but an entirely different outcome. Because you changed how it arrived. High-status speakers do one thing differently. They control tempo. They speak slightly slower than the room. They pause before finishing thoughts. They let words sit instead of chasing reactions. And that creates something rare. Weight. When your voice has weight, people wait. They don't jump in. They don't talk over you.
Because your voice is telling them, without saying it, that what's coming next matters. That the thought isn't finished yet. That there's more. And that pause, that silence between ideas, is not weakness. It's control. It's the sound of someone who doesn't need to fill every second to be heard. Someone who trusts that their words are enough. And that trust is felt before it's understood. But here's where most people still get it wrong. They fix their voice, and under pressure, they lose it again. Because when the stakes rise, the old patterns come back. The speed returns. The tone softens. The sentences start going up again. And everything they worked on collapses in the moments that matter most. Because fixing your voice in practice is completely different from holding it under pressure. And if you don't understand how to do that, none of this works when it counts. The real shift doesn't come from voice alone. It comes from timing, from knowing exactly when to pause, when to slow down further, when to let silence do the work that words can't. And if you don't control timing, you don't control anything. Subscribe, because in the next video, you'll see exactly how timing changes power in real conversations, not in practice, in the moments where everything is on the line.